The public is being conditioned to look at the sky. Media reports amplify contracts for missile defense systems, such as the one awarded to MDA Space by the U.S. Missile Defense Agency. This creates a powerful illusion of security based on a kinetic, symmetric threat model. This model is obsolete. The mathematical reality is that spending billions on physical shields is a losing economic protocol. The adversary's incentive is to bypass the shield entirely. According to CSIS analysis, the primary vector for a first strike is now cyber warfare. The objective is not impact but paralysis. The true weapon is not an explosion, it is silence. The strategic targets are the subsea fiber optic cables that constitute the central nervous system of global finance and military command. A simultaneous blinding of orbital satellite arrays severs the optic nerve. This is not theory. It is documented protocol in adversarial military doctrine. The result is the creation of a blind leviathan, a state with unmatched kinetic power, carrier groups, strategic bombers, nuclear arsenals, that is suddenly deaf, dumb, and blind. It cannot see threats, communicate with its forces, or clear transactions in its own economy. It is a giant, flailing in the dark. This asymmetric attack forces the stronger power into a binary choice. Accept a debilitating strategic defeat without a shot being fired, or initiate a launch-on-warning kinetic response with incomplete data. Both options lead to systemic collapse. This is the silent vector. The strategic pivot is not a choice. It is a mathematical function of national bankruptcy. Modern kinetic warfare is a solvency crisis. As reports from Al Jazeera confirm, Russian war deaths are reaching unsustainable levels. In strategic terms, this is not a human tragedy. It is the rapid depreciation of a state's primary asset, its fighting-age population. The cost of replacing a single main battle tank is calculable. The cost of replacing a generation of men is not. This unsustainable kinetic cost creates a fatal domestic liability. Authoritative analysis from geopolitical think tanks like CSIS indicates that as casualties mount, the war transforms from a state project into a political poison pill. The regime's survival becomes paramount. When a nation can no longer afford the price of conventional, symmetric conflict, its leadership is forced to pivot. The objective, economic acquisition, does not change. The vector does. Weakness forces this pivot to asymmetry. The incentive to deploy a low-cost, deniable first-strike cyber capability becomes overwhelming. This is the protocol for systemic failure. Why spend billions on a kinetic war of attrition when, as stated in source number 1, a cyber first strike can achieve strategic paralysis for a fraction of the cost? It is a cold, rational calculation to escape an economic death spiral. This is the motive. It is not malice. It is brutal economic logic. A state facing insolvency through conventional warfare must find a cheaper method to impose its will. The goal is to force the stronger power into a negative-sum game. Spend billions on defense systems against attacks that cost millions, or initiate a disproportionate kinetic response and trigger systemic escalation. Conventional weakness has become the launch-on-warning signal for asymmetric conflict. The entire economic model of kinetic warfare is insolvent. The math doesn't lie. According to analysts at RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, the leverage is absolute. A $5 million main battle tank can be mission-killed by a $500 drone. This isn't a battlefield anomaly. It is a mathematical certainty that inverts the cost of lethality. We are witnessing the democratization of violence on a global scale. The requirement for a massive industrial base to project force has been nullified. For the cost of a single tank, a weaker state can field 10,000 disposable, precision-guided assets. This transforms an adversary's expensive military from an asset into a systemic liability, forcing them into a zero-sum game where defense costs exponentially more than the attack. The conflict is not where you are told to look. It is staged in the system's blind spots. These are not failed states. They are gray zone environments, deliberately cultivated to serve as deniable launch platforms for asymmetric attacks. CSIS and RUSI analysis identifies a clear protocol: exploit regional instability as a proxy laboratory. A warning about systemic risk in a nation like Canada or South Africa is not a humanitarian bulletin. It is an intelligence indicator. It signals that a strategic node is being prepped for use as a vector. These zones provide the perfect staging ground for the low-cost, first-strike cyber capabilities identified as the new opening move in modern conflict. An actor can initiate a crippling attack from a server farm in a chaotic jurisdiction, achieving strategic effect with near-zero attribution. This is the core of the economic attrition strategy. The cost to the aggressor is negligible. The cost to the target is exponential. For every $1 million cyber weapon launched from a proxy lab, the West is forced to spend billions on defensive architecture, like the new MDA space contracts, creating a systemic solvency crisis. The gray zone is not the battlefield, it is the leverage point. The launch-on-warning protocol is a relic of Cold War game theory, a systemic response to a perceived decapitation strike. It operates on a single, now invalidated assumption that the warning data from satellite and ground-based radar networks is inviolable. Analysts at CSIS confirm this doctrine remains active. The critical vulnerability is not the missile, it is the data feed. As documented, cyber warfare is now the primary vector for a first strike in modern conflicts. Source number 1. A hostile state facing a conventional solvency crisis from unsustainable kinetic costs. Source number 4. Can deploy a low-cost cyber weapon to blind these early warning systems. The radar screens go dark. The satellite feeds freeze. The commander in the bunker is now operating in the fog of digital war. They are presented with a binary choice, based not on data, but on its absence. Is the silence a network failure, or is it masking an incoming kinetic volley? The protocol compels a decision based on risk maximization. Fear of a successful first strike forces their hand. You do not wait for confirmation that can no longer arrive. You launch. This is the endgame of asymmetric leverage, transforming your adversary's strength into a systemic liability. The protocol for systemic conflict demands a test fire, a calibration shot. This is not a declaration of war. It is a demonstration of leverage, designed to be attribution impossible. Its purpose is to validate the attack vector and measure the target's response time and political will. As a state actor's conventional solvency collapses under unsustainable kinetic costs, its reliance on this protocol becomes a mathematical certainty. The weaker the state, the greater the incentive to prove it can cripple the stronger adversary without initiating a launch-on-warning scenario. Therefore, the forecast is not a risk. It is a schedule. Within the next 12 months, expect a coordinated logistics and data blackout at a primary U.S. deepwater container port. Not an explosion, a systemic failure. The event will target the terminal operating systems and the crane-to-shore data links simultaneously. Official attribution will be inconclusive, blamed on a cascading software update failure or a zero-day exploit by a non-state criminal element. The economic damage will be calculated in the billions, the cost of the attack in the low millions. This is the core of the economic game. It forces the target nation into billions in defensive spending on systems like those from MDA Space to counter an inexpensive threat, bleeding its economic strength without a single kinetic exchange. The calibration shot is a message sent to a rival state's leadership. It proves that critical economic infrastructure, the foundation of war-making potential, is a liability. It is a reminder that the ultimate purpose of conflict remains economic acquisition, and it serves as the final warning before the blueprint is deployed against a target of existential value.